Hello and welcome to Flat Cap Bureau Talk, and today I'll be joined by my partner in crime from the Irish Hotspur, David Harris. We'll be building out our Premier League tables, comparing them side by side. So let's crack into it. David, how are you doing today?
Look, I'm absolutely buzzing, Jack. It's my first appearance on the channel. I'm honoured. I'm honoured to be on and partner in crime. I absolutely love it. That we are. So let's get it underway, my man.
Yeah, let's start with the relegation battle. Unfortunately, David, I was looking forward to, maybe the scum being included in this one, David, but you weren't brave enough maybe to explain it, but me as well, I couldn't really put the scum in here, but we have maybe a couple of differences in that, I actually have Wolves being pretty far down in the table, where I believe we'll be finding your Wolves selection being a bit further up. I think apart from that, we're kind of all the same. So maybe we can just go kind of a fast forward on it. Like Norwich City, I kind of feel like they play nice football, David, from time to time, but they do tend to get slaughtered, and that you kind of need to be a bit more a bit more resolute, a bit more kind of just, let's say, I don't know, not easy to play against. They seem to be easy to play against for certain teams. Newcastle United, Dave, maybe we could crack into that. I feel like this is the year. I feel like they're kind of that team that's always been, that unwanted person at the party that just never seems to go away. And now maybe this is the year that, Newcastle actually might go away. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think eventually, the trouble and the lack of spending, the constant manager rotations, I do think it's going to catch up on them eventually, and I think this is the season. Look, you look at Callum Wilson, okay, you'd say there's definitely goals in the team if they want them. But for me, I think they're far too negative, and I just see it all coming to a head this season. I really do. Look, Mike Ashley, the owner, we all know what his thoughts are. He doesn't really want to pump too much more money into the football club. But I do think this is the time where it's going to come to a head, and sadly, they're going to go down to the Championship. But as well, don't get me wrong, just if Newcastle fans do tune in, just hear me out. I actually don't think Mike Ashley cares if they get relegated or not. And let me tell you why, because I believe they want that takeover, and I do think they'll get away with the takeover in the Championship. I think the rules are a slight bit different down there. So I do think they get away with the takeover in the Championship. So I don't think he's too bothered whether they get relegated or not.
Yeah, maybe they might have a Wolves kind of esque takeover, David. Actually, quite clever. Mm-hmm. And also to Newcastle fans, it is quite unfortunate, but maybe this is finally, the time where you do go down as well. I did have Steve Bruce, David, as the manager that I kind of anticipate being sacked this season, especially in the Premier League, maybe alongside Mikel Arteta. I kind of see those two being the most likely ones actually to probably be sacked. Then again, Watford, are very known for sacking their managers. But then again, yeah, it's Steve Bruce. He hasn't really played much inspiring football. The Newcastle fans really have always had it out for him. I do feel like it's not going to be, a good season for Newcastle, especially since they rely on certain players so heavily. But who doesn't rely on certain players? But they really especially do. I will say, especially Steve Bruce does as well. He relies on St. Maximin. He relies on Callum Wilson. So if anything happens to those players, I really do see them going down. Burnley. The thing is with Burnley is that, they just kind of just collect, 1 point, at a time, and it kind of just builds up and, they reach a certain point where they have to sweat or, they really don't. And, the investment isn't really coming in this season. They did just get Maxwell Cornet, I believe, that player from Olympique Lyon. We'll see how that goes. But Burnley, I always had a bit of a fond respect for them. I do like Chris Wood, the New Zealand man up top, but they're very, very, very frustrating side to play against if you're a big team. But small teams, when they come up against small teams, they're recently not doing so well. So I could see them definitely hovering above relegation. What do you think, David?
With Burnley, do you know what? The reason why I take them to stay up and not Norwich, look, Norwich are trying to do the right thing, the right way, trying to play football. But sometimes when you're just not as good as the rest, you have to show it up at the back. Make sure you're strong at the back and try and nick the games. And that's exactly what Burnley do. And look, they've had success doing it. I actually think Sean Dyche is such an underrated manager. They don't spend much whatsoever, and he still seems to be year on, year out, get the same tune out, a lot of the same squad. A lot of these players have been with them, even when they went down and came back up. And for me, I just think they are going to survive this year. Next year might be a bit of a different story, but this year I tip them to just beat relegation.
Yeah, Sean Dyche is an absolute legend. I do hope, he does, maintain this, this unmatched ability, to stay in the Premier League, no matter what he has at his disposal. I do wish him the best. Crystal Palace with Patrick Vieira, it's not even a bad shout, I would say, for relegation. But then again, They haven't started too poorly, I would say. They've definitely not been so defensively solid as usually you might say with Crystal Palace. Usually they're very defensively solid, but they've actually looked a bit more attacking, it seems like, under Patrick Vieira, David. They had decent spells of football. It's possible he might be a decent manager. What do you say?
Look, for me, I think it's one of these seasons where Palace fans are just going to have to stick with it.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, for me, look, they're in a big transition where they're kind of getting rid of the old Roy Hodgson style, getting rid of a lot of the old guard and bringing in a lot of the young blood, and they're trying to go for a new style, new system of play, and try and bring something different to the Premier League. And for me, it's just going to take time. It's one of them processes. It'll take time. I think Patrick Vieira will come good for them. For me, stick with him this season, and I think next season you'll see the rewards. Look, they still have Zaha. In fairness, he just seems to get on with it. He doesn't throw his ties out of prams. They have Eberechi Eze there. He's a very, very good player. I'm a big fan of him. And look, if he can get Benteke to nick him a couple of goals this season, I think they'll have enough to stay up. But with Palace fans, I just say, just stick with it. Don't jump the gun. You're in a complete rebuild. A lot of the old players are going. A lot of new players in. Young, fresh, hungry players. So just stick with it.
Yeah, they actually have a decent forward line. And also, I think Eberechi Eze suffered that horrible injury, so he's not even back yet. But when he does, return, you could see it. He might be out this whole season. I'm actually forgetting. But I think when he does return, he would be obviously an instant boost to them alongside Zaha. They do have that new French, I'm forgetting his name now, that really tall French forward that they bought last season as well in the January window. He could be good for them. They could actually have, let's say, a better season than maybe years past. But Patrick Vieira, I wouldn't say I wish him the best, David, but, with Crystal Palace, I don't mind Crystal Palace. I don't necessarily have anything, against them. So I would say, if they were to hover above relegation, I'd be happy to see that. This is where we defer, I would say, a little bit, David, here. You kind of have Leeds United, Bielsa, maybe taking a big step back, you would say. Why is that?
Look, for me, I just think if you look at his record, he doesn't actually last too long at too many clubs. I do think the likes of his training regime, the likes of the murder ball and everything else, it does eventually take its toll on players. And just looking at the start they've made so far, look, they got absolutely pummeled by United. Would that have happened last season? No. They got a draw against Burnley. And for me, I just think maybe that cycle is coming to an end. And I do think Bielsa will see out the season, but I think next season they will have a new manager in the door. And look, I think Leeds got away with it the last few years because they're fitter than everybody else, Jack. I'll be honest with you, they were much fitter than everybody else, and they got away with it, and they had good starts to the Premier League. I just think this is the season that it will catch up on them, but I do think they have enough to stay up. I know a lot of people are tipping them for top half, finish this, that, and the other. I'll be honest, I do not see it. I don't see it. I think they will struggle this year. I think even last year, look, they were exposed an awful lot. Defensively, there's huge gaps there, but they scored goals and were fitting than everybody else. So lasted. This season, I do think, with a lot more of the likes of Chelsea, United, bringing in better players. Spurs have brought in a few. Just for me, I just don't think the gaps are going to be there for them to exploit, and I think a lot more teams will exploit the gaps that they've left open last season. I do think teams will be 10 times better. And I think of the fact that the crowds are back in and everything else, I don't think they'll cause as many upsets as they did last year.
That's interesting, David. I actually can't really argue with that. There is definitely Bielsa burnout. I would be a bit sad to see it happen, considering I think a lot of those Leeds United players are quite, lucky. They're seeing the best years of their career. You might say under Bielsa. They're in the best shape of their lives, as well under Bielsa. They probably have a lot to thank to him, but as well, there is definitely that burnout. You definitely could be right there. I don't see them getting relegated. I do see them, being able to hover just fine. But you are right that, performance against Man United was a bit concerning. It wasn't really the side that we're used to, and they are fully capable of getting split open in certain games, and just not, from the get-go, certain games, Leeds United will just lose and, just not be up for it. And then certain games, they look like they're the team that are going to win it. It's just kind of that much of a back and forth kind of side. So I do agree. But also as well, David, Brentford, we kind of don't maybe have it. I guess we have them, finishing and kind of comfortably, above everybody, but we don't really have them finishing mid-table. Do you feel like the Brentford Thomas Frank kind of, Danish revolution? Are you kind of skeptical of it? Do you kind of just feel like they're just going to be comfortable? What do you think?
No, look, I actually think, 15th or where you have them 14th is a good finish for them first year in the Premier League. Yeah. Look, I think the manager's a good manager. I think the style of his philosophy and style of play, I really like. I really like some of the players, and there seems to be a good togetherness there, and they're all fighting for the one cause. For me, I wasn't surprised they turned over Arsenal. I could see it coming. When these relegated teams come up, the first few games, they're very, very hard to beat because they're all at it. They all want to get off to a good start. Yeah. And, the Premier League, they all have their new haircuts. You know what I mean, Jack? So for me, look, with Brentford, I actually think they have enough to stay up. They have Ivan Toney. He will get goals. I think Mbeumo is their winger. He's a very good player. I like him. And after that, they just have some solid professionals in there who do the right thing. And for me, I think, get 15 to 14 this season like we predicted. Very good season for them. And then I can see them building on that. I think, the chairman is very good. They're in a new stadium as well. So, look, I think all things are going right at Brentford. Everything is pulling in the one direction. There's no, you would say any loose cannons or, noises coming out from Brentford. Not anything whatsoever. It just seems to be that everyone literally is pulling in the right direction. And, I've seen them staying up comfortably. I think they have enough goals and enough talent in there.
Yeah, maybe I was just a bit humbled by, we were almost so enthralled with what Leeds did last season, finishing 10th, I believe it was. And, with Brentford finishing 15th or 14th, you're absolutely right. That would be a huge blessing to them. And that honestly be a huge success, especially for the Moneyball operation that they have over there. Moving on to the mid-table, which for me, the mid-table is around 13th. To 7th. Let me know in the comments, what you guys consider to be mid-table. But this is for me kind of a bit of a mid-table kind of area. David, just right there, sitting there dead below on the bottom, just away from, kind of the relegation area of the table. What do you think? Arsenal finishing 13th.
I had to do it. 13 is an unlucky number. I hate Arsenal. I had to do it. But look, not only that, the reason why I've gone with this, and let me explain this, is because I actually think Arsenal will stick with Arteta a bit longer than what they really should. For me, I would sack him over this international break and go in and get somebody else. But I don't think that's going to happen. I actually think they might keep him up until October, even the November international break. And if things aren't working out. But by then, I think it's too late. But not only that, you look at their squad, how many of their players actually realistically want to be there? How many of them enjoy playing for the club? How many of them enjoy playing for the badge? They have... Aubameyang there, he got a couple of goals in the Carabao Cup, but since he's been getting his 300k a week wages, he stopped playing football. You know what I mean? You look at Lacazette. I don't know what's going on with that guy. You're talking about Xhaka in midfield, who's a liability. And then you have Saka. He's decent. You look at their defence; it's shambolic. Chambers. Yeah. Pablo Mari.
Chambers and Holding. What was it? Chambers and Holding against Man City? Yeah.
Spent 50 million on Ben White. Ridiculous. Right back. They're a joke. You're bettering. And then you look at left back. Okay, Tierney's a good left back. He's one I would have actually brought into Spurs. He was from Celtic. I rate him. I think he's a very good player. But then you look at the goalkeeper situation, Jack. So they sold their best goalkeeper to accommodate Bernd Leno. And now they've gone and spent that money that they sold their Martinez for to Aston Villa. And when they spent it on Aaron Ramsdale, who I don't think is a good goalkeeper whatsoever. I just think everything at Arsenal is completely wrong. Recruitment, the lack of quality players, even the manager. But look, this is where I stand. I would be hesitant to constantly throw their managers under the bus. And let me tell you why as well. Because look, with Wenger, it was clear today that he was doing the best with what he had. They weren't giving him the millions and millions and millions to go out and spend. They were just happy with Wenger getting top 4 every year. People got fed up with that and says, no, Wenger's outdated. He's done. Got rid of him. And ever since then, they've just been on a managerial circus. Unai Emery, again, got fed up with him. Got rid of him. He's gone and won a Europa League with Villarreal. You know what I mean? Then you look at some of the interim managers. Freddie Ljungberg couldn't get a song out of the players. Then they bring in Arteta, still can't get a song out of the players. Look, I know they're going to, we got the FA Cup last season. Yeah, let them keep living in the past because that's good for us. But for me, I actually think, until they really sort this squad out, every manager is going to fail. And do the owners have the desire? I think maybe the owners are Spurs fans, because I'm starting to think, are they purposely, making Arsenal worse year on year, year in, year out? It's just an absolute shambles of a club right now. It really is. And AFTV be fun, seeing Arsenal down that far as well. So, I definitely think it's a cause for concern. If they change their manager over this international break coming up, okay, I probably would change my prediction to maybe a bit higher up where Everton, Aston Villa are. But as it stands, I'm sticking by it, and I'm saying it with my chest.
I can't say anything further, David. I think that was perfectly summed up. The only difference I would add is I actually could see that managerial sacking happening a bit sooner, but I kind of agree with you where there won't be still that much of an improvement, with the managerial or with the new manager coming in. I just don't really, there aren't that many great ones available, you could also say. And then also considering that, there won't be a huge amount of investment given how much they've already spent and wasted. He'll have to deal with what he has available, which isn't, like you said, isn't very good. And so I don't really see them doing much better than 10th, just because now in the Premier League, and I've said this before, the Premier League is becoming more like the Super League. And so you really, it's kind of actually a lot harder to break into that top 10 than, it maybe used to be. But moving on, Southampton, I have them at 13th, and believe me, I have them hovering there. Like I could see them, really, struggling, for relegation, especially if the, James Ward-Prowse were to go. I could really see them struggling. I think he's just such an asset to them. It's almost like a Saint-Maximin situation. I do think they heavily rely on players like him. They rely on Bednarek, as the center back a lot as well. I don't really think he's that fantastic of a center back, but once they lost Vestergaard, now Bednarek is someone they have to rely on. It's just a bit of a, I don't know. It's just not looking great for Southampton. It's like, where do the goals come from? The defense is a bit shaky considering how Ralph Hasenhüttl wants to play. But then again, also Ralph Hasenhüttl is a fantastic manager, and I do rate him. And I do think he's a bit, he's almost way too nice, I would say, to Southampton with how long he stayed there, considering the investment. But moving on, Brighton, Harry Potter for me, ironically, is actually finishing a bit lower than David has Harry Potter finishing. Just for me, I do think, that we'll actually see a bit more goals from, the expected goal machine. They do still tend to miss chance after chance after chance. If they don't lose Bissouma this summer, this summer or this season, then I could see them doing really well this season. I think Bissouma has a huge component to their side. I think if Maupay just continues to fire and doesn't, reach that stage of the season where he can't even hit the ocean if he were to fall out of the boat, I think they could probably finish, quite decently, considering they do create plenty of chances for themselves and they are defensively solid. Leeds United, I do have Bielsa finishing around the same spot, maybe dropping, a position or two. I do see them still finishing mid-table just because they do seem to be up for the big games. I do see them getting slaughtered in certain big games, but as well, they might pick up 3 points when other teams wouldn't. In games, maybe even against, Arsenal, they might pick up 3 points when another team wouldn't, just because, Bielsa is a very tactically smart manager. No matter how much the players might not be playing for him, his managerial ability is quite sound. But David, Aston Villa, maybe we can move on there. I could chime you in there. What do you think of, Birmingham? And this is kind of an interesting one, though, because they haven't really started off too well as well. Like, who is it? How am I forgetting his name now? But the Aston Villa manager hasn't really started off too well. Dean Smith. Thank you, David. Dean Smith. Do you think he could be sacked this season? I didn't include him in my managers to be sacked for this season, but I feel like with a lot of the investment, he doesn't have as much of an excuse as he did before.
Look, for me, I actually think he's going to be sound. I actually think once Aston Villa settle in, I think they'll be sound as well. Look, for me, the Grealish deal, it kind of did happen after pre-season, late in the window. Then they've gone and replaced the players. For me, I just think it's about letting them settle in, let them, discover their new rhythm without Jack Grealish, because not having Jack Grealish is huge for them. He used to pick up the ball, win them free kicks, get them up the field. He was hard to, master when he's on the ball. The guy, he manipulates the ball so well. He created so many chances for them as well. And he was their captain. We have to remember this. He was the captain. He loved the club. He's a Birmingham boy. You know what I mean? And especially when the games were in the balance, that kind of took over him, that passion, that desire, that love for the club, and ended up getting them over the line. But for me, I do think I would give them another. I'd give them another couple of weeks. I'd give them another 2 games. Then I expect Villa to start finding a bit of form, and I expect them to continue steady on from there. I actually do rate Dean Smith as a manager. I think he's done a fantastic job at Aston Villa. I really do. To get them to promote it, to keep them up, and to get them as high as he did last year. I actually think I think he's done a fantastic job. What I would say to Villa is, even if they don't finish top half of the table, is just stick with Dean Smith. It's just, look, you losing a Jack Grealish is absolutely huge. It's massive. I can't, state that enough how big it is. And for me, they just have to just stick with it. Even if this season it is a tough season, stick with Dean Smith, have another go in the market, and go again next season. But I think they'll do just fine. I really like Villa.
Yeah, I think well said, David. In terms of, Aston Villa, I do feel like if they were to finish top half, that would be actually a success, like David maybe illustrated there. I do feel like with all the investment, though, I would like to see them do maybe a bit better. But you're right, David, considering they would be losing Jack Grealish, the most productive player practically in the Premier League, maybe next to Kevin De Bruyne for sides, it is a huge loss, and they're going to have to just deal with that loss. It's just unfillable shoes. So it is actually well said there. In terms of Dean Smith, though, I'm maybe not as convinced. I'm convinced by his defensive organization, the way he was able to, Matty Targett. He's turned into a very solid left back in terms of defensively. Matty Cash also is a very solid right back defensively. Tyrone Mings has become solid and a huge leader, as well as Ezri Konsa. So you do kind of consider, with that back four that he's worked with, he's made them all very, very solid. But I don't really kind of rate maybe the attacking patterns or anything like that they've really developed. There just seems to be a huge reliance on certain players and their ability to create. But also that's always worked for certain managers. So I could be completely wrong, completely off there. But then again, we still have them finishing 9th, but is a very respectable finish, considering, how, like we said earlier, how competitive it is to finish up here. But David, you also have Wolves, though, finishing quite high this season, despite maybe them not doing so well to begin with, but they're quite unlucky, I would say, to come out with no points at all. I mean, 3-1-0s, what do you make of Wolves? Are they actually going to be kind of coming back to the middle table again, making a bit of a resurgence again?
Yeah, look, I actually think they will. Look, I'll be honest with you, I think they've been very unlucky. You look at the games they've played against Leicester, 17 chances, against Tottenham, 15 chances, against United last night, I think it was another 14 chances. They've just been unlucky. They just cannot put the ball in the net. But that will happen. Once the one goal goes in, they'll fly. They are creating chance after chance after chance right now. I just think Jimenez just needs that goal to get his confidence back.
Do you think they'll beat up on smaller teams? Maybe their first 3 games were just all huge teams: Leicester City, Tottenham, and then Manchester United. I mean, you just can't have a tougher schedule than that, really, to begin with. Do you feel like once they face like a Brighton, a Southampton, whatever is beneath them, do you feel like they'll just kind of just start beating up on teams like that?
Look, Brighton, I think that'll go 50-50. Southampton, I think Wolves will be beaten. Arsenal, I think Wolves will be beaten, and anyone else below them. I just think they create more than enough chances. The only thing I will say is, if there's an injury to Jimenez or an injury to Traore, I do think my prediction, I could be more along the lines of where you have them, Jack. But right now, from what I've seen with them, I think they're a lot more attacking than what they are last year. And once they get the goals, I think they'll have a good campaign.
Yeah, and I do agree with you, David. I think that's a solid pick. Where Wolves have looked really, really amazing to watch this season. Honestly, a fantastic team to watch. Really unbelievable the way they play. So direct, but also so quick, and as well very defensively solid. They all look great, I will say, I must admit. But Everton, I do have Everton winning, the Everton Cup this season, which I call, the 8th or 7th place position. It's the Everton Cup. It's always what they're good at winning. And I have Rafa Benitez, winning them the Everton Cup, basically the position in the top 10 of the table that means nothing. And Everton seemed to always be able to win it. Last season, I didn't think they win it or did win it. I think that was I think it was, kind of Arsenal that won the Everton Cup last season. But what do you think, David? Everton, Rafa Benitez, will there be something different, or will it be kind of just, this kind of similar position that we're used to?
I'm in two minds over this. Do you know, I was actually going to put them lower down the table, but when I really think about it, no matter who Rafa Benitez has been in charge of, whether it was Chelsea, Liverpool, Newcastle, he's always done a solid job, and he knows this league inside out. And for me, I just think they'll do enough to definitely get, eighth place finish. They could even finish above that if they can get, more goals out of Calvert-Lewin and that, and maybe more goals out of Richarlison. But if they don't, I think eighth is definitely respectable. I think you'll see a lot of close games with them this year, 1-0s, stuff like that. Look, Rafa Benitez is not known for his attacking football, but one thing he does do is definitely shore things up at the back.
Interesting. Well said, David. If they were to also maybe lose one of those transfers or lose one of those players in the transfer window, we could be saying something different as well. Big difference, though, here is you have Leicester City finishing in the top 6, and I do not, David. For me, I think West Ham United have looked unbelievable. I do say, Souček is secretly one of my favorite players. I just think he's an absolute menace. He's an absolute animal when it comes to getting in the box. Just the laps he's practically able to do up and down the pitch. I mean, in terms of, doing suicides, up and down the whole length of the pitch, he probably wins every single one when you think about it. He just seems to be able to just have a nonstop motor as well. Antonio just seems to improve as a striker every single season. He's on fire at the moment. Ben Rama seems to be coming into the fray and being very productive. They just seem to be like a much better team than even last season. And last season, they were a very strong team. So I will have them finish in the top 6. But David, why do you have Leicester City maybe finishing ahead of them?
I think it's easier for me to explain why I have West Ham finishing below Leicester is because West Ham aren't used to Europe, Jack. And I do think that could be a factor this season. With Europe, I don't think they have the squad to be able to deal with the Cups, with Europe and the Premier League. I do think that will stretch their squad a lot further. They're clamouring for signings at the minute to try and, build that squad up at the minute. And I just think, anytime West Ham are on the verge of doing something good and breaking, they always get it wrong. And for me, look, I think 7th is a very good place finish for them. I really do, Jack. But I just think with Europe this season, I think you might see a few Labour performances in the league. In terms of Leicester City, the reason why I have them finishing above West Ham is just because, look, they have the know-how. Brendan Rodgers has the know-how to manage squads with Europe League, domestic campaigns, domestic cups. He just has that know-how. And they have a very good squad, Leicester. I really like their squad. I really like their players. I really like Brendan Rodgers. I think he's doing a good job. Do I think they have enough to get into the top 4? Clearly not here by my league. But where they are right now, 6th, I think is a respectable finish for them. It's the best of the rest.
Well said, David. I will say, well said. And I will say, hopefully, West Ham, the way that you describe, their fall, I absolutely hope and envision that happening. But I just, for me, they do look, like a force to be reckoned with. And it really pains me to say that. Leicester City, for me, have not really looked so strong to begin with. I don't really know why that is, considering their team and their squad is a whole lot stronger. I don't know, maybe it could be just some issues in the camp. But I don't think we need to dwell on it. I do still see them finishing top 7 for sure. I do have West Ham United finishing 6th. The only thing I can say is I think that's the team that we have to focus on being better than this season is, West Ham United, we could use as maybe a bit of a benchmark, David, for finishing top 5, finishing top 4, because I do see personally West Ham United or Leicester City, in your case, finishing quite high. So if we're, as Spurs fans, if we see ourselves continually, getting 3 points when they're dropping points or getting, a point when they drop, all 3 points, whatever it may be, we have to maybe compare ourselves, I would say, to those two teams, especially in order for us to have any success this season. They're like, I would say, a solid benchmark. Obviously, we would want to shoot higher than that, but I could see them as being solid benchmarks for us being able to make the top 6, David. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. I definitely do think we'll definitely make top 6. Like you said, we just need to keep picking up points when other teams are dropping points. But look, I see a good season on the horizon for us, Jack. And that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and then the only thing I can add to it is just a lot of these teams that we're grouped with here, We just have to be able to just keep an eye on their performances as well, for us to know that, top 5, top 6 could be insured. As long as we're winning and they're dropping points, they're going to have to find the time to make it up. Well, we'll have the time to be able to secure it and, ensure, success. So if we continue down this pace, all we have to do is just not look at, we don't really have to look behind our shoulder, but definitely might be wise to as fans, is I guess all I'm saying. But Manchester United, David, we have a huge difference in. I don't really believe in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I actually would see Spurs finishing 4th and maybe Man United finishing 5th. I could easily see that happening personally. I feel like he's just had all this time to invest in the right squad areas. I don't think it's anything having to do with the owners. The idea that they haven't replaced Fred or Matic in all this time, I don't think has anything to do with the owners. I think it has to do with either the directors of football there, or it has to do with Solskjaer personally. It's just someone in there is causing that, issue to be had. Someone is also not playing Pogba in the right position. That's also Solskjaer. Considering he had 5 assists in the first game, you would think, wow, I might just put this guy wherever he wants to play. But they haven't done that for, all 5 seasons. As much as I don't really like Pogba as a player, you just play him in the position that's best suited for him, and he will produce, you would think, as well as Bruno Fernandes. You just play him in the position that best suits him, and then you'll produce. I think they have all the right signings. I mean, especially with Cristiano Ronaldo coming in, maybe that's why you might think they might finish so high. It's just Kron will be able to come in and take over and take them to the top. But even with Kron at their disposal, David, I just think Solskjaer, he's just really not a manager that I rate. I feel like that Leipzig performance, where they got kind of embarrassed and dropped out of the Champions League, was just a huge embarrassment that a lot of people want to cover over. I think there's just moments like that when he gets really caught out and he kind of gets a bit outclassed by other managers. He has a good reputation or a good record against Guardiola and such, but when he came up against Leipzig, that was just a huge warning sign for me for times when he can really get easily found out. So for me, Man United, I could easily see slipping. I could see them 5th or 6th, despite all the investment. I still see them finishing, 4th, 5th, or 6th. That would be my hot take, David.
Do you know what, for me, Jack, look, my problem with United over the years have been they let the standards and what was expected of United players slip after Sir Alex Ferguson left. Just completely let it slip, completely let it go. And they are trying to rebuild that back. And I just think bringing in Ronaldo will do that. I think a lot of players will fall in line, especially for some of the youngsters, but I think a lot of players there, you look, if you have Ronaldo coming into your club, surely you look at him and you're like, what does he do off the pitch? What does he do on the pitch? How does he train? And you follow that example. You look at Varane, he's been there, done it. Another player like that to come in. Yeah. He will add that pace beside Harry Maguire. I think that'll be a very good partnership. Then you look at Jadon Sancho coming in as well. I do think he will hit form. And I actually do envisage United having a good season. And it's not because of Ole Gunnar. It's not. It's because
the players will get them there.
Ronaldo will be a leader on the field. You have Greenwood, he bags goals. When Rashford comes back, he will bag goals. Yeah, you have Cavani, his movement is brilliant. So if you don't play Kron, you play Cavani up front. He will get you goals. You look into the midfield. Pogba, for me, is a player, unbelievable ability, but just does it when he wants. That's the most frustrating part. And I don't think United will actually win a league until they sell him. I just think he's bad for the club in general, around the dressing room. I think he's bad, in terms of standards, examples to youngsters, stuff like that. The only thing, and another thing, the reason why I don't think they win the league is just he has this fascination with playing Fred, or a Matic, or a McTominay. For me, McTominay, okay, you need a player like him who will be that hard nut in midfield, that homegrown player, who loves the club. He's come through the system. You know what I mean? You need a player like him in there in midfield. Like Fred and Matic, what are they still doing there? Honestly, if Donny van den Beek sitting there can't get a game, that guy's an unbelievable baller. Unbelievable. You have Bruno Fernandes. I do think United will mount a title challenge, but unfortunately, I do think they'll fall short. Just to that bit of inconsistency. It's the inconsistency that kills them, and I think that's what will ultimately, fail them.
Well described, David. I mean, when you kind of consider all the players that they had at their disposal there at one point, when you were listing off, the guys that will come into the squad, I mean, how could they not finish, in top three? I mean, how could they not? Even with a horrible manager, they would still be able to themselves, guide themselves to that position. It's hard to argue with that logic. But if I were to have any hot takes this season, I would say Man United actually hugely slip up unless they sack Ole. Unless they sack him, I could see them doing quite well. But I really just certain games that's just so concerning. What he does and what he's thinking, even the way he approaches it too. He's just a bit stubborn. I think when people pretend to make him out to be some well thought out guy, I think he's a bit stubborn. But yeah, moving on, I would say Manchester City. It seems like it could be one of Guardiola's last seasons, a bit of Guardiola burnout. Maybe the money has, gotten to his head and he just doesn't, know much about the tactics anymore. It's possibly even the oil has even, clouded his judgment at this stage, when it comes to the tactics. It's just Man City. I see them beating up on a lot of teams like they always do. They always are fully capable of those 5-0, 4-0, 3-0, but they just don't seem to have that winning edge maybe this season. There just seems to be something a bit different about them. There could be even some issues, with Guardiola in the squad internally. It's hard to say, but yeah, I just see them finishing third or fourth this season, but probably third, just because Guardiola, I don't see him slipping up that much and, finishing fourth or fifth or something like that. He is still, at the end of the day, kind of a flat track bully when it comes to any league. He just knows how to bully teams. But David, I mean, Manchester City, is there a particular reason why you just kind of don't see them winning it at all?
Lack of a main man up front. I'll be honest with you, Gabriel Jesus is not going to get you the goals that you need to be able to mount a title challenge. It's that simple. Look, for me, I was torn between them and Liverpool to drop out of the top four this season. I've just gone with Liverpool, thinking now I probably would change it to City, but I'm going to keep it the way it is. Look, the reason why I have City not mounted a title challenge, I'll be honest with you, is not only just not having that number 10 in Gabriel, that natural striker in Gabriel Jesus who will get you the goals, but I just think after a certain period of time, players just become bored of Guardiola. That's just my opinion. When you see when you're hearing the likes of this summer, Raheem Sterling, Riyad Mahrez, Laporte, players like that maybe on the way out, Gabriel Jesus, I've never heard that come out of City before. Some of their top players leaving. De Bruyne, he seems to be picking up a lot more injuries. Fernandinho, for me, he's getting on.
Becoming ancient now at this stage.
Zinchenko, I don't rate whatsoever. Look, defensively, I think they'll be okay. They have Jack Grealish there and that, but with Sterling, we all know he misses an awful lot of chances. They're going to have that period where he starts missing the chances, he's not getting the goals. For me, I just don't see them being anywhere near what the level that they've reached the last couple of years. And I know they're looking at a Champions League this year, but they're having a hope at that. Having a hope in hell at that either this year. I think last year getting to the Champions League final, was as good as it gets for them. And I think Guardiola, will be gone at the end of this season, and City will be in for a new era.
Well described again, David. Well summarized. I don't see them doing well in the Champions League as well, considering that might be a bit of a hindrance as well to their league form. Just a lot of extra games that they have to play in, and I don't see them doing too well in them, like you said. But moving on, this is maybe, again, a huge difference that we have. I actually, David, really rate Liverpool this season. The fans are back. Jurgen Klopp, I do think is one of the best managers in the world. Even with, last season, considering all the injuries, I thought what he accomplished was actually quite impressive, especially because there did seem to be kind of some internal, squad kind of drama and everything. He seemed to manage it quite well. He's become a bit stubborn, I would say, and I kind of don't like, a lot of his press conferences now. He's kind of getting a bit full of himself, Jurgen. But I do really I just rate him as a coach. I rate him as a people person. He knows how to manage the squad clearly well. He's kind of getting out, it seems like the best out of Diego Jota, who I really rate as a player. He's getting the best out of Mo Salah, every season. And Mane, when Mane's up for it and Mane's playing really hot again, that's just a really ridiculous front three. And if that front three starts clicking, and if they kind of, and Matip also had an unbelievable game, I will say, against Chelsea. I don't see them winning the league this season because they definitely have the tendency to kind of drop points when they shouldn't. But as well, I do see them, challenging for the title in some sense or form. They could be a third place team maybe, but I don't see them dropping out of top four like David described. I just feel like their team and their kind of chemistry and the way that they play, it's just not really possible. Like it's especially with how much they were hurt last season and them still going as far as they did. it still just shows. I think there's just something about Jurgen Klopp where he's able to just, gel the team together when he needs it, get the wins when they need it. It's just some magic ability. I don't think it's Liverpool in any way. It really pains me to say all this stuff. I just think it's Jurgen Klopp. And also they have an unbelievable squad.
Look, for me, love Jurgen, hate Liverpool.
Yeah.
For me, Jack, look, I fully take on board what you're saying. I really do. I think you've made a great point there. Just for me, look, I look at it, I think they're in a rebuilding phase. They haven't spent nowhere near as much money as they probably should have, especially off the back of winning a league title and the Champions League. I think that will come back to bite them in the arse eventually. Look, I actually think this will be the season where the whole Mane Salah thing will come to a head. They're greedy. They're like, Salah will not, Mane will feed Salah. Salah will not feed Mane. I do think it'll come to a head this season. And the reason why I say that is because Mane, he doesn't look at his usual self for me just yet. He doesn't look at his usual best. And I think maybe frustration might creep in there. And when Salah's not playing him, I think it will come to a head. Firmino only seems to score goals against Tottenham. That's it. That's all he ever seems to score against. Again, I just think the Premier League maybe is changing from getting away with being able to play that like Firmino role or that City role where they don't actually have a proper striker. They just, they have them players that drop deep and allow the wingers to get in behind. For me, I think Premier League's moving away from that. And if you look at some of the results over the last few years, Liverpool and Man City are starting to get found out more regularly than what they were. And I look at the midfield, they're relying a lot on young Harvey Elliott. I think, look, my concern with their great start to the season, but consistency. You look, they've lost Wijnaldum, so you're talking about Curtis Jones stepping up. I rate Curtis Jones, but again, consistency. It's all well and good dipping them in and out and seeing great performances. But when you're relying on them week in, week out at a younger age, and there's more asked to their body and it's taking more of a toll, consistency will become a problem. I look at defence. I'll be honest with you. I do envision another injury for Virgil van Dijk. That one he had last year was a massive one. And there's no way he's coming back and playing a full season this season without having a niggle or anything off the back of that injury last season. Fullbacks, I think they're fine. Goalkeeper, I think they have a very good goalkeeper. But for me, you know what? I just don't see it. I look at United to have Lukaku, or Chelsea to have Lukaku. I look at United to have either Ronaldo or Cavani up there, or put Rashford or Greenwood or anybody else up there.
Yeah.
We have Kane, we have Son. I just think they'll be found out this year. That's just my opinion. I don't think they spent enough money to be able to get top four. I know they had a lot of injuries and they still managed it last season. But look, last season was a dismal Premier League. It was a one-off. A lot of teams were poor, in my opinion. And it's not going to happen again this season, not with crowds and everything else in. The standards won't be allowed to slip like they were last season. I just think this season might be the season where the lack of spending will catch up on them.
Well said, David, to be honest. But I will, kind of agree to disagree here. I just think, if even if they do get kind of found out, it's just something about, the way that they play. They just seem to scratch out, wins, draws, just in the most annoying ways. Liverpool. And as well, it's also, considering this could be maybe the last season of, the Mane, Salah, Firmino kind of partnership or trio, excuse me. So that's why I just see, I think this is like, their last surge, their last effort to really win things all together until the real rebuild happens. Yeah. And so that's also another reason why I could see it, being Liverpool's way. Another reason is simply because of kind of a German, kind of a manager, title race. That's what I actually think could be happening just for the cameras. It just seems like the script for that just makes sense, David, kind of two German managers just going at it like they were in the recent clash as well the other weekend. Where that game was honestly unbelievable. Chelsea, fantastic performance with 10 men. Liverpool certainly would probably be quite frustrated to not come out with 3 points. Also at home, when you consider it as well, they should have probably come out with 3 points. But it did show that, I do think these two sides are really strong sides. Even Liverpool, not coming out with the 3 points, they still looked really, really strong at handling Lukaku, because Lukaku just looks like he's going to bully a lot of teams this season. Matip was handling him. Van Dijk was handling him as well. They were able to handle Havertz, to a degree, despite that, pretty insane goal. You just think about it. I don't know. It could be just an interesting German title race as well. The way that they play football, the pressing style. If the players are still up for it this season, it is really hard to play against, really hard to play through. It's very dominating kind of style, which is kind of a dominating kind of style is a title winning kind of style for me. But Chelsea, we both have them as our winners. I think it's the Lukaku signing and kind of other areas, but also for me, David, it's kind of just Thomas Tuchel. He's just showing to be an unbelievable manager. What he's done to that Chelsea side, he's made them defensively impenetrable. Going forward, they create tons of chances. They're maybe not the most clinical team, but I would say defensively, they're definitely the most solid team. They have Rudiger, who just seems to have turned into a gladiator of some sort. He's just an absolute menace. Obviously, Thiago Silva, one of the most calmest heads in any building, or any pitch whatsoever. Christensen has kind of stepped into his form. They're bringing in the likes of Jules Koundé, potentially another, center backs they're on the lookout for. It just seems like, it's Chelsea's season.
Look, for me, Jack, you look at what Thomas Tuchel came in when he did what he done with Chelsea when he came in last season. Now, I'd expect him to continue that on this season. And for me, I just only see one winner of the Premier League this year, and it has to be them. Thomas Tuchel, he doesn't lose many games. How many did he lose last season when he came in? Barely any, if I can remember. Maybe one or two. He brought them to a Champions League final, won the Champions League. You know what I mean? Brought them to an FA Cup final. Okay, that didn't go their way. But look, if for such a short space of time, he's been hugely, hugely successful. With
all he knows is winning. Yeah.
Yeah. Under Frank Lampard, they didn't look like getting top four. People would have said, yeah, I think they're going to miss out. He's come in. He completely changed Chelsea. And for me, look, you look at the signings that they've added, Romelu Lukaku, they're getting a Jules Koundé. I think they're going to be just fine. Just on the Liverpool game at the weekend, I actually think Chelsea would have ramped on in the second half and destroyed Liverpool if they didn't get that man sent off.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, just looking at Liverpool, that's probably a game they probably would have won last season, or the season's gone by that they didn't win. But with Chelsea, I honestly, I think they're going to win this Premier League comfortable enough. I really do. You look at Havertz, he's really coming to the fore. He's a great player. You look at Hakim Ziyech, another player I'm a big fan of, even when he was at Ajax. You look in midfield, Jorginho, Kovacic, players who can get on the ball and manipulate the ball. You have Kante in there who will break up play and run all day.
Kante coming off the bench for them now. It's just ridiculous.
You look at the wing backs. You have Alonso. He's a threat, whether he's putting the ball into the box or on free kicks. You have Reece James down the other side. He's just an absolute engine. And I really like that Edouard signing as a keeper. I actually really rate him. I think he's a very good keeper. I think it was a shrewd move. Whoever done that bit of scouting, should definitely be given a pat on the back. I do think it was Peter Crouch that actually made that, not Peter Crouch, Peter Cech, that made that call to bring him in, as far as I'm aware. And he's worked very closely with him. And I just see Chelsea, honestly, I see them winning the league, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them win an FA Cup or a League Cup this season and go very far in the Champions League. But one thing I will say to Spurs fans out there is that Thomas Tuchel, he is a Spurs fan as far as I'm aware. He is a Tottenham fan. So after he's finished with Chelsea, we could end up seeing him at Tottenham. And that would be very nice. And just with Tottenham, I know people are going to say, you have us in fourth. That's mad. Look, for me, the reason why I have us there is I just think we're going to be surprise package this year for the whole Premier League, Jack. I really do. I just think we will be the surprise package. And you look at it last season, we were 5-6 points off top four. We were abysmal last season. Abysmal. Now this season, all of our players are fit. They're all at it, all fighting for the one cause. And I just see us sneaking in there,
I really like that, David. I love that. I just feel like, David, like I said before, and I'm going to use the same lesson. If we're comparing ourselves, throughout the season to West Ham United, Leicester City, and whoever, is finishing maybe fourth, it could be maybe Man United or Man City or Liverpool. If we just constantly, try to finish above them and every weekend try to, get points when they're dropping points. If we constantly, just keep a lookout, like I said, look over the shoulder at them, I feel like then we can finish, top four. We just has to be a different mentality for the players, I would say. Yeah. They have to recognize that there are weekends when you can't drop points. There are weekends when you have to win. There are weekends where, it's almost all costs. It's almost like a final, because there are certain games when you just can't drop points in order to be, finishing top four, especially, like I said, because the Premier League is turning into the Super League. But let's just break these down just one more time. In terms of our relegation, sides, we both have Newcastle, Norwich, and Watford, finishing, on the bottom. I feel like a lot of people aren't surprised by, the 19th and 20th place, Norwich and Watford. Newcastle might be a bit of surprise for some people, but I do kind of see it as being, maybe the final season for them. Moving on to the mid-table side, Southampton could be one that, I think we both recognize could easily drop, very heavily. They definitely have lost a lot of their best players, and also, maybe Ralph Hasenhüttl might be out the door considering, all the players they've lost and the lack of investment. I think he's, better served elsewhere, considering I kind of do rate him as a manager. I know people make fun of him for, the huge, losses that, they've had, the big spankings, but I kind of don't really, it's a bit of his fault, but it's also not, I really think it's, the players. You really look at that squad, and that squad is really not good. That squad is a relegation squad, if you ask me, and he's done quite well with it, but he could actually, get caught out this season. Brighton, David and I, expected goals, they'll be finishing a bit more mid-table this season instead of bottom of the table. But David has the scum finishing very low this season. And I think that was just because he doesn't see them, doing the managerial switch, maybe at the right time. And as well, they've already invested a lot of money into the team. So who's to know how much they really have left in the piggy bank, David?
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think Arsenal finishing 13th is a solid prediction. I'll be honest with you. Look, Arsenal do not have a track record of doing things at the right time, so that's why I'm basing my prediction on that.
Yep, and then seventh place, we have two different kind of takes here. David has, Mr. Moyes getting, caught out, in the European competition, not being able to handle both at the same time. Fair shout on, them trying to get all these transfers in, ahead of the deadline, just so that they can have, a strong enough squad for Europe. That's a good shout, I will say. In terms of our top six, we had Chelsea both winning the title. We definitely deferred on, where we think United will finish this season. I think David had a lot more reasoning than I did. Mine's just pure speculation, just kind of more a hot take, just based on, Solskjaer. I really just think he could capitulate that hard. Spurs, we do have finishing top six. And then, that is definitely a very interesting way to break down, I would say, the whole Premier League table. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please let us know which ones you definitely disagreed with, because I know there are going to be some takes, some reasonings that, the Harris Army, the Flat Cap Army will definitely disagree with as well. Let us know what you think of, us including Spurs in the top six. Let us know what you think of, Chelsea just being a bang on, title winner. Maybe you might think someone else will win the title. But everybody, I do hope you enjoyed this one. I really do hope that you can leave some comments in for David and I, so we can check out this one as well. I do hope that you can share it, to everybody as well, who doesn't love a bit of Irish Hotspur, breaking down the Premier League for you. But that'll be all for everybody. David, any parting words?
No, I just want to say, Jack, I've really enjoyed this stream. It's nice to, get away from the Spurs content just for a little break to come over here and do this. Thanks for having me. Everybody else, I think this has been a brilliant stream all put together by Jack. The guy's a genius. Make sure you smash the subscribe on this Flat Cap Euro Talk. This channel is going to take off. You want to be in the first few hundred. Never, ever doubt Jack and his ability. Last parting words is, I would probably gear towards Jack's league table than mine. Jack watches probably more football than I do. And he's never, ever too far wrong on any of his predictions.
I appreciate that, David. But, maybe point of the Flat Cap Bureau Talk is a bit, to improve my table predictions for, the other leagues outside of the Premier League, might leave, a bit of the Premier League knowledge to you, David. But everybody, really do hope you enjoyed this one. That'll be all for now. David and I will be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. And let's hope we get the title in top six. And Nuno we trust, and yada. But everybody, we'll be seeing you.
Up the Flat Cap Army.